button open, was it?
I honestly didn't try to remember. I imagine Emmett is at the
He's at the, yeah, Emmett's at the Board of Finance meeting.
Right, he might be able to excuse himself.
So,
Where is that held, over there? Oh, then you know what we could do is text Emmett and let him know that if anybody shows up for the commission meeting to send it
yeah,
over
tell him that,
to
the minutes weren't correctly prepared.
What's that?
For you?
I'm sorry, I'm muttering.
Oh.
I didn't think to put anything on the door as I drove over.
That's for you. That's for me.
What's an agenda?
Mark just said that he has a family issue that needed his attendance in Weathersfield. So he just literally left my house.
But I don't have Emmett's cell number.
All right.
I only have,
Peter, hang on just a second. Oh God, you're gonna make me use a smartphone. That's dangerous.
you should be able to just go right to your contacts.
Yeah, should be.
See how good that is?
Oh. Peter, you still there?
It's okay, because what we'll do is we'll text him now, and then we'll call Peter.
All right, let me shoot this over to him. Call Peter back, and then we can get going. Sorry about that. I told you I was trying to use my smartphone. You can't give a smartphone to a computer idiot. It just doesn't work that way.
No, you can't.
All right.
That's what most do anyway.
Yeah, I know. You know that better than most. Okay.
Because I am an idiot.
No, that would be me, my man. All right. Well, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We can call the meeting to order. If you'd all please rise. And recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like you all to stay standing for a moment, please. I don't think I have to remind anybody where they were or what happened 16 years ago today. I will tell you that having been there and worked with the fire department for 5 days, I understand what the place looked like. I know how many souls were lost, over 2,600 civilians, 343 firefighters, 74 New York City police officers, and a half a dozen first responders, EMS folks, in addition to the 55 lost in the Pentagon, and all those lost on the planes, over 2,600 civilians. I'd like to just take a moment to remember them and to add our prayers to those who are suffering in Houston and Florida with the recent devastation. Thank you. Other than the incorrect place, do I have approval for the, a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the
Second.
agenda.
I'll second.
Peter got the second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I have circulated by email and now in hand a copy of the minutes from the July 10th special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make the motion to
Okay.
approve the minutes.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second to approve the minutes?
Yes, second.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any discussions, amendments, additions, deletions?
I have a couple. Underneath the call to order, it needs to list that Carlene was seated as secretary in Tanya's absence,
That is correct.
because Tanya was late to the meeting, she thought that it was here.
So is just a curiosity question, so Tanya has been appointed the secretary?
No,
Or
she's
Tanya
been-
has always just been asked to take minutes when Mary Ann has not been there?
Tanya was appointed our acting secretary.
She was acting
For Mary Ann.
secretary by Mary Ann, when Mary Ann
Left
could
the
not
first
make it.
time?
No, when Mary Ann couldn't make it
Okay.
because of illness, she asked Tanya to take over.
Under communication, application for membership, at the bottom of that paragraph, the recommendation will be carried to the Board of Selectmen. That was already accepted at the 6/27 meeting previous to our meeting in July. We were just getting an acknowledgement from the selectmen.
Mary Ann's
Resignation.
resignation. Actually, that is correct. The recommendation was accepted.
It was accepted by the Board of Selectmen at the
Let
6/27.
it read.
So what are we making the change on? It was recommended,
Yes.
commission member Mary Ann resigned from the commission.
Right. We
Officially
actually took the
submitted
official vote
that night.
that night.
We don't vote to, we
To
serve
make-
at the appointment of these.
That is correct. We recommended that her resignation be accepted.
It had already been accepted on
Well,
6/27.
we did not know that, so we made the recommendation. That was a recommendation made by this body that evening,
Okay.
with regret.
Okay. The attachment that Mr. Ventris handed out should be attached, should be included.
I did not get that attachment. Do you have that? Well, this is the same thing that we've been,
Yeah.
so
But it
this
should
is
be
the
made
same.
available for the general public.
It's been on the website each time we've gone over it in our minutes.
It's on our website?
So it should be on the website because it's been
Okay.
submitted
Then a
along with the
reference,
minutes.
then a reference should be on there that it's on the website.
Okay, we can do that.
Let's see. I had a question about the vote tally. The motion was, I'm sorry, at the end of, under new business, paragraph that starts the meeting was called into executive session.
Mm-hmm.
At the end there, the motion was seconded by Ms. Quinn and carried by a 4-to-1 majority vote. We have 5 regular voting members, 1 is resigned, and no one was listed as being seated, so it should be a 3-to-1.
Oh, you're
vote.
absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
And that is also, that is a motion that goes to the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
That is correct, but it has not gone.
Right, but it's still, everywhere else we stated that it would be a recommendation carried to the Board of Selectmen. It doesn't say that. It says
Because
chairman.
it was not submitted to the Board of Selectmen.
Neither were the other two, but it still states that they're going to the Selectmen, Board of Selectmen.
No, the other 2 were,
The recommendation will be carried to the
recommendation-
Board of Selectmen.
which was by Mr. Lyman.
It has not.
He did not mention the fact that they had already approved Ms. Halpin's.
Okay.
Resignation.
And there's the second recommendation will be carried to the Board of Selectmen by Mr. Lyman for new business,
Ooh.
Hello.
where we approved, where we recommended Carlene to serve on the open space. We made 3 recommendations that night, the third
Oh,
being,
that is, yeah,
the third being that Ms. Burgoyne be removed from the
okay.
commission.
I will put, how would you like that worded?
Same as it was in the previous ones. The recommendation will be carried to the Board of Selectmen by Mr. Lyman. And we don't need to vote to adjourn, but we do need a second to adjourn.
I believe I seconded it.
Let's just put it in. It's my recommendation that the 8 individuals who spoke, just a brief synopsis of what they spoke about be included. I have those notes if you need them.
Well, I think the brief synopsis, in my opinion, was very well put, where they all spoke against.
You know, it's all on tape too, Kevin, if you want to be that nitpicky about it. The consensus was that the 8 people that spoke were not in favor of it. I mean, if you wanted to get down to word for word of what they said, I guess we could translate the tape, but I don't think that's necessary.
Remember that minutes are a summary
Yes.
of the discussion.
And typically you acknowledge in the minutes anyone who speaks from the general public.
Well, that would be fine if everybody identified
They
themselves.
did, I have all their names right here.
Of all of those who spoke?
All 8 individuals who spoke: Kim Barrows, Dawn McNary, Lynn Branscombe, Irene Haynes, Sonny Martin, Maureen Pa, Rhea DiStefano, Emily McCabe Alger, and Alexis Devlin.
Wonderful. Then I
Like I
would
said, I
suggest
Give those to Carlene.
that you give those to Carlene and she can attach them to the minutes, instead of including them in the minutes.
Okay. And then I would recommend taking out, I'm sorry to jump around on you. It states Marianne Halpin's resignation from the commission due to health issues. I don't think that needs to be a matter of public
She
record.
put that in her letter.
Okay, then it stays.
Okay.
I'm ready.
What, Peter?
Oh, sorry.
Peter,
Yes, sir.
were you saying something?
No, I'm just, no.
Okay.
Peter, could you hear me? I'm sorry, I was speaking kind of softly. I didn't realize it. I forgot that you were on the phone.
I'm here.
All right, with those recommendations being made, do I have a vote to accept as revised and amended by Mr. Staley? All in favor?
Yes, I'm in
Aye.
favor.
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Thank you. Hell, we ought to make you the secretary. All right. Chair's report. I really don't have a whole lot to discuss, but I was thinking about our charge, our meetings, the frequency of the meetings. And if you take a look at our charge, we're actually only required to meet 4 times a year, quarterly. I think it would probably be a little bit easier on everybody if we scheduled our meetings when they would probably be most beneficial. There's very little in the way of farming or agriculture that most folks are going to be interested in doing probably after July. It's already ongoing. It's already pretty much done. So my thought was, for the first 6 or so months of the year, January through July, we meet monthly. Or January through June, we meet monthly. We then could look at meeting on a quarterly basis, basically September and December. You getting this down, Carly?
I am.
And I think that that probably would do 2 things. 1, it'll make life a lot easier for the members of the commission. 2, it'll give us the opportunity to be productive when it's most important to be productive. So I'm just going to throw that out there. It's not for any decision at the moment, but I just thought I'd let you all know that I've been putting some thought into this, and when we meet again, I'm going to recommend that we meet next in December. We can discuss that, put that on the agenda, and make some moves. I will tell you that I was talking to Mark as we were putting in 6x6s in his garden with the tractor, that he is still very much interested in bringing forward lectures, and that's further down in the agenda, but I just want you to know that there still is the interest. So I'll let that go, and we can pick that up later on. With respect to communications, I received, and we discussed it at the last meeting, we received an application for Mr. DiStefano for membership on the Ag Commission. Subsequent to that meeting, or actually before that meeting, but subsequent to his, the First Selectman's Office received an application from a Lynn Branscombe. That was received actually on the 10th, and I did not receive that until after the meeting. So we have two applications, one from Mr. DeStefano and one from Ms. Branscombe, that we probably should be discussing at some point in time. So I would be happy to entertain.
She's not here tonight, though.
Was she invited to come and speak?
She might be at the old town hall, probably.
Well,
Since that's the
I would be, I think it's fair to discuss these in the order of receipt. Having no other idea as to how to proceed other than one came first, then came another. And I do know that there was initially some discussion at the last meeting to bring Mr. DeStefano on. But I think right now there are Tanya as an alternate, Bonnie as an alternate. We need to fill a regular member, and we're supposed to have 3 alternates. So my thought, if we can take this out of order, if it pleases the commission, my thought is to take a look at a couple of things. We need to reappoint Mr. Henderson, whose term expired, and in speaking with him, he has said that he is interested in continuing on. So he could be at the moment, our 3rd alternate. And I would like to hear any discussion or a motion to approve his reappointment.
Now, this is Peter. We're talking about Mark Henderson as an alternate, right?
Yes, Peter.
Okay.
And if I
I'll make
remember.
that motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Peter, seconded by Mr.
Kevin.
Staley, Kevin Staley.
Just as a point of discussion and clarification, I believe, if I remember correctly, Mark said he was not interested in serving as regular member, correct?
That is correct. He is
That was at the
interested.
last meeting he mentioned.
He is interested in staying on as an
Right.
alternate. Is there any discussion? We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of reappointing Mark Henderson as an alternate member of the Agriculture Commission for a 2-year term, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to also discuss, and you'll understand the reason for taking things out of order. In talking with Bonnie, she has voiced her interest in becoming a regular member. She's currently an alternate member. And so I would entertain a motion to transition Bonnie Bongiorn to a regular member from an alternate member.
I'll make a motion.
Now, again, this is Peter again. I'm just asking a question. Now, Bonnie, let me put it this way. If Bonnie becomes a regular member, is there any spots left for regular membership? Or is that closed out the door?
It closes the door at the present time. It opens a spot as an alternate, and it closes the door for regular, because the regular membership, if Bonnie is then accepted as a regular member, will be Kevin, Bonnie, Carlene, you, and me. That's 5.
Okay. Now, at this point, again, the question, at this point, so there's no room for either Mr. DeStefano or, I forget her name already, other 2 applicants, let me put it that way.
Ms. Branscombe?
Yeah.
Not at the moment, because Mr. DiStefano would come on as an alternate if the commission so desires.
Or
There's only one.
if Bonnie wanted to be an alternate, I mean, not Bonnie, what's her name again? I forgot.
Lynn Branscombe.
Oh, yeah. If she wanted to become an alternate, we'd have to decide between the two, right?
That is correct. But the discussion a couple of minutes ago, I'm not sure that I came quite well across, was that we would take their discussion, that we would discuss them in the order that their applications were received.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
So at this point, what we're talking about, or quote-unquote voting on, is if Bonnie becomes a regular member.
Correct. And then we can look to fill her vacated spot as an alternate
Yes.
with Mr. DiStefano.
Okay. Or, okay. Okay. Yep, I'm okay.
All right, so there's a motion to transition Bonnie from alternate to regular member.
Yeah.
There was a second.
There's a motion, I'll second that.
All right, we've had the discussion. All in favor of moving Bonnie to a regular member from alternate member, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So that fills the vacancy created by Marianne Halpin's resignation. Can we take,
Sorry, before
Yes.
we move on, will Bonnie be taking over Marianne's secretaryship, or will that still remain with Tanya?
well, I think that remains to be seen. We can decide that at a later date, but in speaking with Bonnie, she made it clear that she's probably a worse secretary than I am. That's pretty hard to do. I don't believe that because it's not possible.
I'll work on that.
Well, you know, this is Peter again.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think that might help us as a commission is, like we used to do on the Board of Finance, why don't we just take the meeting and then at our leisure, either pay somebody or, you know, and I think the best bet is, like we used to do, we used to just pay somebody to take the tape, write the minutes down, and send the minutes to the board, to the selectman's office.
I like that idea a lot. And I would be,
No one has to worry about an in-house secretary.
we actually had discussed that a long time ago when we first agreed to have telephone or teleconferencing for these meetings. We also discussed with the town trying to provide us with recording equipment. That didn't go over that well. So I will volunteer to buy a recorder, and then I'll figure out a way to get those taped minutes transcribed.
Okay.
Should we take that as a motion?
Yes, I
Okay.
think so.
All right, so somebody want to make the motion?
I make that motion.
Okay, well, state your motion, Peter.
Oh, I would like to make a motion to tape our meetings and then at our discretion and/or the town's discretion, transcribe those meetings and get them to selectman's office.
Okay, second?
Second.
We both.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sweet. Okay. All right, Mr. DiStefano is here. Ron, any comments? I know that you had addressed this body the last time.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, any new information that you'd like to provide us?
No, if there's, like I said before, you know, if I
Oh, wait, excuse me. Congratulations to the two of you.
Thank
What's
you.
your son's name?
Thomas.
Thomas. They have a 6-week-old baby in attendance. Can we make sure that he is recorded as a guest?
Started early.
I need to have people sign in then, or somebody needs to have people sign in.
Yeah.
Or state their names, or.
You know what, I tell you what, can I just pass this around? You guys need a pen?
Yes.
It's my only one, no, I'm kidding. Okay, where were we? Sorry, Mr. DeStefano.
Just as I stated previously, if I can bring my past and current experiences to the commission to help out and moving forward, I'm, ready to move ahead with that, whatever position you have open.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. DeStefano?
I asked him last meeting.
Do I have a motion to appoint Mr. DeStefano, or recommend the appointment of Mr. DeStefano to the Agriculture Commission as an alternate member? Make that recommendation to the board?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Bonnie is seconded.
Bonnie hasn't
Wait,
been
you
seated.
haven't been
I haven't been
seated yet.
seated.
You haven't been
Okay.
seated. Who's the second? Second by, yeah, seconded by Kevin. Any questions or
I
discussion?
do have discussion on that, and actually, I thought of it, and I think the Board of Selectmen will sort it out, but I noticed that your affiliation is Republican, which is fine, but we do have to maintain a certain quota on our board. I don't know what the ratio is. I don't know if it's a problem, I don't know if you're unaffiliated or what your political affiliation is, what you're registered as, but it may be a problem with her as a regular, fine as a regular member, and we may not be able to, the board might reject this, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not a reason to go forward.
Understood.
I just wanna bring that to light.
Understood.
And can we also, I don't have a copy of Lynn's, can we look at Lynn's as well?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Because we're deciding between the two of them.
Well, actually, no, we were deciding, we only have one spot, and we were gonna take them in order.
Okay.
And we'll put on hold the next applications as they come in for the subsequent meetings and subsequent vacancies when they occur.
I'm confused. Could you repeat?
We
that,
got
please?
an application from Mr. DeStefano,
Correct.
and then that was on the 28th
Correct.
of June. This application came in on the 10th of July.
Mhm.
So we were looking to discuss them and then vote on them in the order that they came in, or would you like to have a vote head to head?
We would not vote and we can't send two recommendations. So
That
it-
is correct.
So you're saying we would take this off the agenda if
That
this
is
were going
correct.
forward? I
And
just
then
wasn't understanding that.
hold hers in abeyance
Yeah.
until the vacancy comes up.
I have no problem with that, I just, affiliation's independent on this one, but, yeah, other than that, I have no problem.
That's the only copy I
I'm
have. I
sorry.
will be happy to make you all a copy. Yeah, no, that's the only one I actually. Yeah, no, this is the only one I have. The other one, they sent this to me from the town hall.
I didn't understand your process on your order.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not-
I thought we would take
I understand.
the individual who submitted first, and then any subsequent openings, we would take the second and third and the fourth in order. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of recommending the appointment of Mr. Ronald DeStefano for membership on the Agriculture Commission as an alternate to the Board of Selectmen? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, you got that. And Thomas says aye. Okay. Item number 8. Oh, shoot, I forgot something. We got a very nice thank you note from Shailene Thody, who you will remember was a middle school teacher who came to us as a commission looking for help. I wanted to read this note because I think with everything that's gone on, we actually had a win. Dear Dr. Gross, I wanted to thank you again for your help with the school garden project. I was awarded the Middle School Teacher of the Year this past spring, and your help and the Commission's help with the school garden was part of that recognition. Thank you for your dedication to agriculture in our community and your commitment to our project. I promise to continue to nurture caring stewards of our land and our schools. I hope to join you at for a future meeting this fall. From Shailene Thode. So I was very happy to get that, and I thought that it probably could go on record as a win for the commission. I almost forgot to read that. Okay. Discussion regarding future meetings. I have already brought that up in my chairman's report. Are there any thoughts? Because I will tell you that in talking with Mark, he is committed, and he has several friends in several different organizations that, one, work with soil reclamation, two, work very diligently with organic farming and teaching, holding classes and teaching courses, which is where he and his wife Katie actually learned everything they currently know and are continuing to learn about organic farming, raised beds, and the like. So I think that there's a whole host of things that Mark is looking to do. I think that we can continue on fostering our youth by working with Shailene, because I think that the kids in the middle school, I will tell you that after they came in and gave their presentation, I had gone and taught a course to about 40 of the teachers from East Haddam, the Stop the Bleed course. And I think that somewhere in the order of a half a dozen or so of the teachers who were there came up and were very, very energized by the kids' energy and the progress that the garden made. So there's still a lot of work to be done in the garden, but I think that that is certainly something that we can do. Animal husbandry, I think we have somebody who knows something about that.
A little bit, we have
Just
a
a wee
lot
bit.
of clinicians coming in and courses being offered.
And given the number of horses in this area, we can bring in clinicians and trainers that can actually give clinics, which I think would be a tremendous attribute. I think, though, that Mark is really pushing, and hopefully we can start looking, starting in January, setting up a schedule of lectures, a lecture series schedule. The other thing I just mentioned, that Stop the Bleed project. Farming is inherently not what you would call a completely safe desk job. People get hurt, people get injured. And I think that this organization that I'm a fellow of, the American College of Surgeons, has come up with a course that frankly got its impetus after Sandy Hook, brought together all sorts of people from EMS, fire, medicine, Health and Human Services, DOD. And this course is to teach the civilians how to save lives. And I would like to be able to bring that course to the public here in town. We're teaching school teachers, I'll be teaching the school nurses, and I think that the public ought to have the benefit of that knowledge as well. You know, you stop at a roadside car crash and somebody's got some bleeding going on, you can actually save a life. So that's another thing that I'd like to throw out there, just as an offer, as we get to look into schedule things for spring. Any thoughts?
I think that's a great idea.
Any ideas? Any other ideas? Okay. Peter, any thoughts?
Not at this point, no. I'm just proud. It's great. I think it's great.
Okay. If there are no other comments, I would like to open it up to the audience. And again, please, I would ask that folks keep their comments to 3 minutes so everybody gets a chance and we're not here all night. But I would encourage everybody to bring their thoughts forward, please, succinctly. If you would, when you do bring your thoughts forward, please identify yourself. Okay, hand went up in the corner first, and then over in the other corner second.
This one or that?
No, you.
Go ahead,
Charlene,
Charlotte.
I mean
Nelson.
Charlotte, sorry.
You had mentioned wanting to have some work done on examining ideas for zoning ordinances pertaining to horses and other livestock. And I'm just wondering, I did not think that is the same thing as the nuisance ordinance. I mean, those are two entirely separate entities. My understanding was that the nuisance ordinance was being put on hold because there is a state one. But I was assuming that the area required for various types of livestock was still a go. Is that true, or have you abandoned that idea also?
That is in Mr. Ventress's hands and our animal control officer's hands. I am fairly well convinced that it was their opinion that trying to legislate or trying to regulate land use would be very difficult at best. We can certainly bring the question forward to Mr. Ventress and ask if he is thinking differently, but I did not get the feeling that he was terribly interested. You guys, anybody?
That's what I got.
Yeah.
Well, what you're saying then is that he doesn't feel that East Haddam needs to have anything pertaining to what is suitable and what isn't?
I'm not going to speak for Mr. Ventress. I'm just going to say that he did not seem to be interested in bringing any further regulation forward.
Well,
you could certainly take that up with him, but I will remind you again, we are not a body that can make any mandates. We are a body that can recommend to the Board of Selectmen, but we do not legislate, we do not mandate.
So your recommendation would be to take it up directly with the land use office?
I personally would suggest that.
Yeah.
My own point of view is we could, I don't know quite exactly where we stand, but if we were to pursue coming up with a recommendation for Mr. Ventress, based on the response from that last meeting, I don't think he would heed it, to be honest with you. I think we could spend that effort and work on it, but I don't think he would, because he's going to be the one who ultimately legislates, who goes through planning and zoning.
Well, do you realize that almost every other town has some basic ordinances on the books relating to that? I mean, you have to have something to use as a general rule, and then if people have exceptions, they can get exceptions. Anybody that's pre-existing that doesn't apply, I mean, you know, to the new rules is grandfathered in. But the way things are now, my understanding is it's done quite arbitrarily whether or not someone gets a yay or nay to having horses on a certain property, et cetera, et cetera. And with that fiasco that went on with the chickens at the old Shady Brook, I think it would really be in the best interest of the town to have some sort of a regulation about types of livestock and amount of space dedicated to their housing and exercise, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I don't believe that that is a closed issue.
No, exactly.
I
That's
do not. That is an ongoing issue, and we had been asked to make recommendations with regard to farming time.
I just was, point of clarification, my notes from the July 10th meeting state that proposed regs, this is from Mr. Ventress speaking. My notes say, proposed regs are currently in draft form pending AgCom recommendation. So that to me leads me to believe he was waiting on a recommendation from this board.
We can't recommend anything until we see the proposed regs.
I think he gave them to us at that meeting.
What you handed me,
He actually says, I made a note, he said, I asked if a timeline for the draft of the regulations, the new ones, and he said AgCom needs to make recommendation first. It's probably on the beta tape.
I do have a note that it says we don't have a timeline.
Right, but Jim is waiting for.
Right.
Our,
No, yeah.
Jim is waiting for a recommendation from his board, according to my notes, so we can always check the video.
all right, well, my thought then, Kevin, if you have, do you have these electronically?
No, it would be very easy to scan. I can do that for you.
If you would scan that and send these out, we can certainly, so,
If it's on the website, download it.
this actually, so the recommendation
That
here,
might have even, like, that comment that Tanya's reading might have been before everybody spoke as well. It was very clear that the people that were there were not in favor of any changes to the regulations.
Well, that's because the people that were there were the ones that were afraid that it was going to be a problem. That doesn't necessarily mean that if we came up with a good, fair set of regulations that gave a guideline so that there would be not an arbitrary yay or nay, but something to point to and say it's allowed under these regs, then it would have to obviously go to.
so if I
Could
can.
you let me finish, excuse me, please? It would have to go, obviously, to a town vote. We can't accept ordinances without a referendum and a town vote.
So let
So
me,
I
may
would
I read
recommend.
what was written here?
Yes, but I'm saying we need to have something that we can point to and say, this falls under this category, and therefore these are the recommendations. And if someone wants to ask for an exception, that's always available, just like with zoning regulations.
Well, I will say, and it's my bias, and I think I have the privilege of having a bias, that part of the charm of this town is the fact that those who wish to have animals can have animals. And those who wish to have animals on their property can do so, as long as they are not perceived to or do not create a nuisance. And so I would be more than happy to have us take a look at this. There's a one-paragraph suggestion here. Such regulations shall encourage the most appropriate use of the land in accordance with the comprehensive zoning plan, with the purpose of to lessen congestion in the streets, to secure safety from fire, panic, flood, and other dangers, to promote health and the general welfare, to provide adequate light and air, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, and to facilitate the adequate provisions for transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements. Such regulations shall be made with reasonable consideration as to the character of the district and its peculiar suitability for particular uses with the view to conserving property values and encouraging the most appropriate use of the land throughout East Haddam. Now, that, to my mind, is a lot of mother and apple pie, but it provides no specifics.
Exactly.
And I think, I will say personally, that if that's the kind of recommendation that Mr. Ventris is asking us to approve, I would say, yes, I approve that. It has no specifics. It gives those who wish to own their animals and house their animals to do so. If we're going to have a specific and separate nuisance regulation, I think that that is certainly in order. That's just my opinion. I don't know what y'all think. Tanya.
Jim Ventris in our March meeting, March of 2017, was actually asking us for separate designations for hobby, commercial, and intensive farming. So I
Right.
don't know that he would be necessarily against some sort of recommendation. My notes suggest otherwise. So you can always check the transcripts and stuff, but the way I remember it, he was waiting on a recommendation.
He was, and we reviewed those documents on 3 separate occasions, and as I recall, nobody was able to come up with any specific
No, actually, that's not
recommendations.
true. You had asked me to sit down with Ms. Flannery and Ms. Gilston and draft something for the August meeting, which never took place.
Okay, so was it presented subsequent to that?
It's not on the agenda.
So we'd like to have it on the
Was
agenda
it?
for the next meeting.
That's
We had
fine,
no
we can
August
do that.
agenda, no August meeting. It wasn't on tonight's agenda.
So you, in the past, have requested to have items added to the agenda, as has Mr. Staley. I wait until the last minute to send in the agenda to Deb, so that we can have anybody's suggestions, and you had that option, and you chose not to submit any requests.
Well, I choose to submit the request now.
You're not a member, ma'am,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I
but I
thought,
appreciate your suggestion.
but I think it would be a good idea to have it on the agenda and at least have some discussion about it.
Okay, your suggestion's been accepted, I hear you.
And so we will be on the agenda to speak at the next meeting,
That
which is
depends
October.
on whether one of the board members chooses to put it on the agenda. I'm sorry, commission members.
She's asking you for.
Well, I will take that under advisement.
And you'll let me know what your decision is?
Well, you'll see the agenda when it comes out. I would like to know specifically what you want on that agenda.
We would like to open a discussion regarding what we feel would be very fair and equitable and healthy regulations pertaining to number of animals of various sizes on a certain amount of acreage, just like most towns have. We've
Okay.
done a lot
I
of
will
research.
ask you to do me a favor. If you would put that in writing, please. I will take that and I'll put that on the agenda.
So you want a long explanation?
No,
or
I
just-
want what you just said in writing. There's a paper circulating around here. If you would just write that down for me, I'd appreciate it.
Fine.
Anybody else? I'm sorry.
I
Ms. Flannery.
met with the selectman a few times over the winter,
Mhm.
and he suggested that I attend these meetings, and I have. And it's more than just nuisance, it's about shelter and regulations for the amount of land per animal, as other towns have. And the other thing is, I forgot, it's more than nuisance. And then, I spoke with animal control last week, and he indicated that he has given you everything that he has suggested.
Actually, he hasn't because he had gone in for surgery. And so the discussions were halted pending his recovery. I have not talked to him since before the July meeting.
His surgery was postponed, so as of.
Well, I don't know that, ma'am. You know more than I do.
So as of last week, he said that he had given you everything that he has recommended.
Well, if he has, I haven't seen it.
Hi, Chuck.
But I'd be more than happy to call him up and see who is accurate in their comments.
Okay.
So if you would just jot down that I will call Michael Zaki.
They postponed his surgery, so.
Well, I'm glad you know his health status, because I don't.
Well, I
spoke
was
with
under the
him.
impression that he wasn't in attendance at the last meeting in July because of his surgery.
That's what I was told by him.
Well, they canceled, and as of last week, he's still waiting, but in the meantime, he has submitted to you all of his recommendations.
Okay. I'm telling you, he hasn't.
Okay, well, I'm getting this. I'm getting,
No, you're getting it from me. If he's given me something and I haven't gotten it, then I haven't received it.
well,
Simple.
maybe it's Jim Ventris, so. would
Whoa,
you-
no maybes. It's either me or it's Ventris. Please, let's be very clear here. I don't mean to be annoyed, but I don't particularly like to be accused of receiving something that I didn't receive, and now you're saying, well, maybe it's Jim Ventris.
Well,
Let's
I'm
be
not
clear with
making-
the facts here, please.
It's not my intention to make an accusation, I'm
Okay.
just for
I am telling you,
clarification.
I have not seen anything from Michael Zaki, and I have not talked to him since before the last meeting, because he told me I can't come to the meeting because I'm going in for surgery. Simple.
So, would you like me to call him again and have him contact you, or do you want to?
No, I'd be more than happy to call him.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
When you were going back to talking about the lecture series, having people come in and lecture,
Can you identify yourself?
Ray DeStefano,
Thank you.
sorry, I'd be happy to do a horse lecture of any kind if you needed it.
Much appreciated.
Just volunteering, throwing that out there.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm just still confused with what Charlotte's asking for.
Where is that?
She's asking to be put on the agenda for next meeting
Thank you.
May I take a crack at it?
I would like to have a discussion about drafting regulations and ordinances pertaining to the amount of designated land for various classes of livestock on the agenda for the October meeting. Okay, so what you want is you want us to legislate acres per animal.
No, I want to get working and offer some suggestions based on our research, what other towns have, and come up with ordinances or regulations, whatever the proper term is, as far as the amount of acreage you need. Like one town has class A, B, C in order of size, etc., and the amount of acreage that is necessary to have X number of those animals, which is very reasonable because it has a lot to do with the quality of the land, the quality of life for the animals, etc., etc.
So let me ask you a question with regard to quality of life. You're suggesting that we ought to be legislating or making ordinances for the amount of pasture.
Right, the
Per
area,
animal.
well, pasture or enclosure or whatever it is. Because, for instance, the thing that happened over at Shady Brook, if we had, regulations that supervised what is a safe amount of chickens, et cetera, and it wouldn't have ended up being the way it was. And there are a lot of different places that simply have a lot size for X number of animals. It doesn't address the amount of area designated for the animals, and that's the big oversight. Because, for instance, somebody could have 8 acres of land and say, okay, then I can have, if the zone is 2 acres for the first, say, horse and a half an acre for each other horse, then that would allow them to have, 13 horses on the property.
Mm-hmm.
But if they only have 1 acre that's fenced for 13 horses, that is not healthy for the horses, it's not healthy for the land. So if they're,
I'm sorry, but there would be a whole lot of people that would disagree with what you're stating as facts. So before we even go there, I think that your 3 minutes is well used. I have your request. I will see if we can't get Mr. Ventris here to the next meeting, because as I read this, that is the only thing that he recommended. And I don't think it goes anywhere close to being what you're looking for.
well, but I'm just saying we could look into it as other towns have done and let the people decide.
I would be willing to bet that if this came from Mr. Ventris, and it did, that is his recommendation. And we heard any number of people talking at the last meeting who were very much against what you are suggesting, because it changes the character of the town and the quality of, or the ability of people in town to use their land as they please.
Then why do so many of the other towns have specific ordinances?
I don't live in all the
Good
other
idea.
I
towns.
also
I
think
can't
that
tell you
Jim
that.
said it would
I'm
be
sorry.
like policing every,
Right.
3 minutes, yes, I'm sorry, you.
Can I use a couple minutes of my 3 minutes? We specifically moved to East Haddam 3 years ago. We came from a town that had very specific regulations to where I had 3/4 acres of property and was only allowed 6 chickens. That was it. No rabbits, no nothing else. And we moved to this town specifically for the purpose of being able to have the livestock that we have on our farm, which, cows, goats, pigs.
I'm sorry, can you identify
We still have-
yourself?
My name is Thomas Cobb, C-O-B-B.
Okay.
And, we moved here specifically for that purpose, and that's one of the things we checked on before we bought a house to move from the other town that we lived in, was specifically to get out from underneath those specific guidelines to say, you don't have an acre of land, you can't have any more than 6 chickens. Which is, in my view, and the research that I've done with all the universities, Cornell and University of New Hampshire and all those, Oklahoma State, that have gone into those specific things, that's far from the recommendation that they make for good livestock care. And for someone, to say, okay, you've got 5 acres of land, but you can't have but 3 animals, is ridiculous to me. And that's why I moved to this town, was specifically for that liberty to be able to have my livestock and do the things that I would like to do on my land.
Well, I appreciate that, and as I said, My personal bias would agree with yours. And that doesn't mean that we won't bring this forward again for discussion. I think it was brought forward at the last meeting for discussion, and Mr. Ventris basically said that he was not in favor of doing that. He was in favor of coming up with a nuisance ordinance.
But if the townspeople were aware of all the different choices and ramifications, it's not something that one person should decide in town. It's something that everyone should have equal access to investigating and deciding whether or not they would want to have it.
With all due
Because-
respect, the town isn't run by the townspeople when you put somebody in the job of determining land use. That's why he's in that position, as I recall.
Yes, but there are certainly, he doesn't get to make up all the rules for P and Z, et cetera, et cetera.
No.
So, and the P and Z gets input from the public, whether they're going to say yay or nay to different projects. So this is the same sort of thing. that
Well, I will
it should
assure
be
you that I will bring this
explored.
forward to Mr. Ventris.
Thank you.
Can I make a statement, not to belabor a point, but I just want to be clear on something. No matter what gets done or does not get done, anybody who already is here, or anybody who already has horses, they're grandfathered in.
Right.
So
Said that
any
several
current issues that are floating around, it's not gonna cover. So,
Understood,
yeah, I just hope everybody
Understood.
It's good
understands
to
that.
bring up,
Yeah,
understood.
so it's not gonna resolve
So
any
if we
issues
have
that
a-
are currently there.
right.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I said that several times myself, that anything in existence is
Yes, you did.
grandfathered in.
Yeah.
But I'm not just speaking about horses, that's my number one priority because I happen to have horses. But it would be a good thing to have the ordinances like several of the towns that classify, for instance, that having 6 chickens on 3/4 of an acre is ridiculous. I mean, the one ordinance I saw allowed you to have 15 chickens in a half of an acre.
Well-
But, you know, each town does its own thing, but what we're looking for is to find something that is fair and reasonable, taking in mind what is best for the animals and their specific needs. Because obviously, you don't need as much room for chickens as you do for horses, et cetera.
Mr. DeStefano.
Yeah, just 3 quick bullet points. One to follow up with Mr. Cobb. That was stated many times in the last meeting that a lot of people moved to East Haddam for the various reasons. Second thing was, and Jim had stated this too, a lot of this is seasonal, and I think somebody like Peter's gonna understand this. If you're running a cattle feedlot operation, you're gonna go from having, let's say, 50 steers in a contained area. It doesn't matter if you have 150 acres of land, you're keeping them all penned in for the specific reason of feeding them out. So you're gonna have them what looks like a horrible situation to the outside, but that's the way you do it. So it's it's seasonal and it's specific to what you do. So again, you may have 100 acres, but you may have 50 animals in that certain size pen that you run in that feedlot operation. So there's so many variables, you know, to this whole operation.
And I believe that that's probably why Mr. Ventris is very much unwilling to even look at it. Again, he said specifically, other than this, he said, we do need a nuisance ordinance. Right?
The lady that spoke at the last meeting, Emily McCabe Alger, she's the extension specialist for UConn. She did send over to somebody, I'm not sure who she sent it to, the new state ordinances that are like, have superseded all these little town ordinances of all the research that they've done that say that agriculture has changed in the state and everybody's keeping animals on smaller acreage. And that's out of the state booklet. And I know she has that, so if you contact her, she can
I'll call her and get it.
Yeah, Emily McCabe Alger, she's at the Extension Center out of Haddam. She has that what the state put out.
And these were what ordinances, the
It
state's
was the
ordinances?
state ordinance, she'll know what you're talking about.
Okay,
She showed it to me at the part of the last meeting, and it basically is reinforcing the thoughts of everybody at the last meeting. And
I've
it's
read
basically
those.
making all the town ordinances obsolete.
good.
And this is what they've come
All
up
right.
with. So if you go by that, then it's out there.
Well, we will put this milquetoast document. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to call it, because it's mother and apple pie, motherhood and apple pie. It just says everybody's gonna be happy and everybody's gonna be healthy and everything's gonna be safe. Yeah, I'll vote for this. And I will try and get that from Alger. I will put Ms. Gelston's request for discussion on the agenda related to this. And I was wondering if there was any further discussion. If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
One or the other.
So moved,
Yeah.
second. We're adjourned.